I'm Nicholas of NighttimeNicholas, and I specialize in diaphonization, which is a process that makes animals transparent while selectively staining the skeleton. What attracted me to diaphonization? I had never seen anything like it before. I saw this display case at the museum, and there was no signage, no information, no guide to tell me what it is that I was looking at. It looked alien and luminous. It just attracted me like a moth, and I just always had those pieces in my mind for 10 to 12 years until I came across those protocols again and just decided to try to make those pieces for myself. Diaphonization is probably the most hidden oddities gem as far as preserved animals. Everyone's heard of body worlds, and maybe not everyone. Most people have heard of body worlds and plastination and taxidermy, dried specimens, pinned specimens. Diaphonization is this very unique process that is, I would say, the least common of all of those sort of animal work, oddities, preservation types of processes. Diaphonization works by staining the skeleton. The dyes are special dyes that target those very specific areas. It's kind of like how hair dye is meant to dye hair, and though you might get it on your hands, it's not going to stay there like it stays in hair. The dyes that are used, one is special for bones, so it just bonds there like a magnet, and the differential stain is targeted for cartilage, so it bonds to that in the same way that the other dye does. The tissues, the muscles, those are all made to be transparent, so it sort of keeps the skeleton fully intact, and you can observe it in an accurate way and not in a distorted way. So it's a little bit different than articulating a skeleton like you might see a dinosaur at the museum. It's a little bit different from that because we know how that skeleton is supposed to look, but maybe not the distance of the bones and yeah. I make sure that all the animals that I use are not killed for the work that I do. It's incredibly important for me that that's a point of my business. There are so many animals that die, things that die that can be reborn, so to speak. I don't need to go and seek that out. I wouldn't feel good about it, and I feel like it's a very slippery slope once you start. There's really no draw for me to go and ask a hunter to go find me Bambi carrying a bunch of baby deer. There's no draw for me for that when all these animals that die naturally can be utilized. Initially, I studied religion in university, and I really couldn't do much from that apart from being a teacher. So I am a trained primary school teacher, and I was teaching primary school, and after having realized that I am maybe a bit too soft to teach children and they need a lot more structure than I could provide, I tried to find something else, and so I wanted to focus on my interests and the things that I excel in, which are mathematics and the sciences. So I focused on applying to radiation therapy and getting all the credentials that I needed in order to apply. Once I had all those prerequisites, I did apply, but while getting all those prerequisites, I did come across the protocols for diaphonization, and at this point of my life, I understood what it is that was happening in these protocols. Things just sort of snowballed, and NighttimeNicholas just became something that I couldn't manage in conjunction with something else. So I began to just focus on that with everything, with all my energy. I've been working at this for about maybe 3.5 years. I started NighttimeNicholas while I was working at a different place, and they overlapped for about 6 months, and it just became too difficult to manage both. And I was also incredibly unhappy at the place that I was at. So I've been working at NighttimeNicholas dedicated for about 3 years. So it's taken about that time to build the client base, to do the shows, and to grow it to where it is now. I definitely had to overcome my preconceived notions about animals when I had started out. I'm incredibly squeamish, but I had to, like, for me, working with animals is different than watching a surgery show. It's very different for me, because at least at this point I can separate myself, but at the beginning I could not. So the first time I ever worked on someone's cat that was their pet, it took me a really long time to look at it as an object and to separate myself. And the first time I worked on a pigeon, I had this understanding of pigeons, that they're gross city rats that fly. They're rats, they eat cigarette butts and all this. But when I opened it up, it was the freshest. It looked like the meat looked great, and I could tell in its gullet. It was just it had a better diet than I did. So it taught me to disregard a lot of the things that I'd heard about animals, certain animals at least. But there definitely is a certain understanding of certain animals that people have, and I can definitely play with that. A lot of people are grossed out by mice and rats. That's what I try to push on people the most. A lot of people have a certain averse connection to snakes, and I can play with that as well, especially coming from studying religion for 5 years. It's something that I enjoy playing around with. Understanding the formulas, the science behind it, my understanding of mathematics and specific sciences like biology, chemistry, helps me to perform this process, because I don't end up hurting myself from using very dangerous chemicals. I know how to neutralize them, dispose of them properly, to not cause myself permanent, irreparable damage. So it's incredibly important to understand the science of what's happening. Diaphonization is kind of like cooking. If you get a recipe from a head chef somewhere and you have no idea about cooking, then you might not be able to execute the exact same dish in the same way, and chances are it will be inferior to this head chef. So all the diaphonizers that I know, and there aren't many, we all have our own process, we all have our own way of doing things. I mean, all the information's out there, and just by observing and knowing how to work with these chemicals and what the process is doing, we've all created our own way to execute this process. And I feel like I've perfected my process, my personal process, because I'm always experimenting. I'm always looking for ways to make things better. Sometimes I make things worse on purpose just to understand what other people are doing. Yeah, so just perfecting my process by experimenting, trying new things that aren't in the manuals, and trying to introduce different chemicals and ways of doing things. Some of the chemicals that are used, for example, formaldehyde, can cause burns in your lungs. When the fumes are inhaled, it turns into formic acid, so people who handle formaldehyde improperly will often have upper respiratory issues. So having proper safety wear, like gas mask with the proper filters, having goggles, just because the fumes can be harmful, not just the liquid itself. So just having those proper protection measures is incredibly important. A lot of the chemicals that are used are corrosive, and the way that I perform the process, I ensure that all those chemicals are gone by the time that they're finished, so they can be handled safely. I usually tell people to keep it out of sunlight, make sure it doesn't get too hot, don't leave it in a hot car, no microwaves, and it's glass. Very often it's glass. Do what you would do with glass, and don't do what you wouldn't do with glass. I tell people not to eat it, but they probably could if they wanted to, but I don't do it. If a piece breaks on, if your cat knocks it off the shelf, if your baby eats it or something, actually no, if your baby eats it, that would be a problem. If one of these pieces breaks, the only thing to worry about would be the glass. The way that I process these pieces, they're stable, they're not dangerous, and if they did break, they're fragile, but they're not going to shatter. So generally, if it falls off the shelf, they can be put back together. My background in teaching definitely helps me interact with people through NighttimeNicholas by differentiating my language to not make people feel uncomfortable if they have questions that are maybe not the most informed, and I can point out some of the interesting parts of these questions that are maybe not as specific as they should be. And so teaching has helped tremendously in order to make everyone feel included. Diaphonization probably doesn't get the recognition it should, but again, I can't speak to everyone else's experience. People might look at it and just think it's complete trash, which, I mean, that's people's opinion. That's not how I feel. But I'm not too concerned about people not knowing about the process, but I definitely want to connect with the people that I know would get something from it. So I don't think diaphonization needs to be as big as taxidermy, but I'm definitely trying to find a way to connect with the people that I know would be interested in it. So I try to target the communities that I know exist that surround NighttimeNicholas and diaphonization. I do my best to make sure that there's an inclusive community around NighttimeNicholas, and to not use language that makes people feel stupid, and to not speak over people's heads. Of course, there's a lot of the academic jargon I can use, and I know that will definitely turn people off. I was definitely a difficult student that teachers did not want to spend the time to teach, and just coming from that, I do my best to be patient with people, to differentiate my language, to sort of suit where they are at, because I know if I make a point of using all of this academic jargon, people are just going to shut down, and it's really not a nice feeling. So it's incredibly important for me to create this inclusive community. The majority of the community are definitely people that are attracted to oddities, people that collect bones, people that collect pinned insects. Sort of a smaller portion would be the tattoo community. There's also a lot of people that study bones, like osteologists, so people in that sort of professional medical world. And there is a large portion that is LGBTQ plus individuals, which I love. I definitely felt like an outcast as a kid, and I can't imagine what it would be like to be a part of that community. And I've definitely had people from the LGBTQ plus community reach out to me and just, relay to me that they feel and have felt isolated, and just seeing the kind of work that I do, and I guess just seeing someone that really is not concerned about what people think has been a good experience for them. And when people reach out, in general, I do my best to guide them if I can, if they are looking for some sort of guidance, or they need information about maybe the work that I do or related work. I do my best to help in whatever way I can. The NighttimeNicholas platform helps me as an introvert to express myself, just because it's more writing than it is face-to-face interaction, though I do love that at the shows. Writing the blurbs on it and researching the different animals that I've processed and want to include those facts, it gives me an opportunity to show people the things that I'm really excited about. It's my platform, but I also want to deliver my perspective and the things that I find exciting. So I mean, without that sort of social media platform, I think it would be hard for me to get my enthusiasm across, because then it would just be limited to the shows, which the pandemic has canceled all shows, and things are only really starting to pick up now in the end of 2021. So at the height of the effects of COVID-19, all the shows were canceled, so everything has just been online sales, online interactions, and I've definitely missed that face-to-face contact with people that are interested in the work, even just people passing through and getting to see the excitement on their face. I've not had that at all, and the opportunity to connect and utilize some of my teaching background and differentiate my language and teach people about it without making them feel uncomfortable. Diaphonization being a hidden gem definitely helps, because when people see it, they're so excited. Whether they're into diaphonization or oddities or not, being at the shows and people coming up to my booth just with wide eyes, that's part of the major reason why I even do this, to have the opportunity to facilitate people's experience when they are that excited or just, I mean, enamored or curious. It's nice to be the point of contact that can facilitate that. This working space is allowing me to work on these larger things. So who knows, maybe there's a bear or a whale in the pipeline, who knows.